Welcome to the Declutter Diaries. I'm your host, Bonnie Hintonack with Bin Your Space. In today's episode, you'll meet my friend, Erin Lamb, and hear her decluttering and organizing journey and how it affected her mental health as well. I can't wait for you to meet her, so let's get started.
Oh, we need to make this a TV series.
I know.
YouTube channel is next.
I have a YouTube channel, actually.
Why do I not follow you on YouTube?
I don't really post there.
I haven't been watching YouTube lately. I've been doing better at Instagram. You draw me there. You're the reason I go to Instagram. I'm serious.
You're so sweet.
I'm serious.
All right, everyone. Well, this is Erin.
Hello.
As we start off laughing. Whew. Yeah, so we've been friends, I don't know, a year?
A year.
A year.
Yeah, I thought about that today. Because it was small groups last year.
It was. Then I sucked you into my organizing.
You weren't like twisting my arm. You drew me in. Maybe we should use that.
Aw, that's sweet.
Very captivating.
I even forget how it came up. I think because we were just talking about it.
Remember the first time I went to Instagram or something to follow you, and then like that one night I like watched all of your reels and like liked them all.
Yes.
You're like, I could see you were on Instagram last night. And I just remember Matt, my husband, watched like an hour of Bonnie.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember opening it up and I had 20 notifications and it was like, all right, so Erin and I are going to be friends.
She's a friend now. Yeah.
But then you gifted my services to your sister-in-law.
Oh, that's right. And that was her Christmas present.
It was.
Oh, I love that for us. For me and you. I honestly forgot about that. I was thinking so much about me that I forgot that it started with the gift of marriage.
I was thinking so much about
I'm
me.
so selfish.
Well, yeah, because I remember you were there when I was organizing Meredith's kitchen.
I think about like the mental experience and emotional experience around organizing. Like her kitchen needed it so desperately. Do you remember why I gifted that to her?
Mm-hmm.
So she's been at her house for like 12 years. I've spent many hours in her house. And I tried to unload her dishwasher and I couldn't put a single, not one item away. I was like, how can I not know where anything goes? So that's what started it. But it was a very like emotionally freeing time. It was like the right time in her personal life, going through a lot of change, like a very therapeutic experience. I think for all of us.
It was really fun.
So I then did the DIY guide because I think I bought it still when it was the kitchen specific. And I was like, I'm going to do my kitchen. That's going to be where I start because we had just done Mare's kitchen. It was interesting to go through it. I had been like following you and your content for a few months then. We had gone through the in-person experience. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try to tackle some of this myself. Now I feel like whoever's listening to this should know that I like am defined by the fact that I am not an organized person. I can be organized in certain aspects of my life, like work stuff. Every email will be read. That stuff can get attention. My personal email, as an example, I think I checked this morning 4,700 and some odd emails. So like I'm not really organized and my house is not organized. I sort of like almost pride myself on being okay with mess in a weird way. I think I've like convinced myself that I like pride myself like I'm okay with it being messy. We're free spirited, laid back. But I was like, I'm gonna do some of these things. And so I did it by myself with your guide, having obviously been coached. I saw you with your in-person action. I've been following your content. So it was like a really good mixture to do that. All that to say, I liked the change to organized home. I went and I did my linen closet and I sent you a couple other spaces where I was like, ta-da, look what I did. Yes, right? Like under the bathroom, all those things. So you already can use so much of what the guide offered without changing a thing to expand it. And it like changes your mindset of, I'm not just doing the kitchen. It's like conceptual that you're able to extrapolate out to other spaces. It was fun. I like sending Bonnie my pictures. That's like the best part of the whole thing. And we should say this 100 times. And it's like your number one thing, always take a before picture. And I have some spaces that I didn't, because honestly, I didn't even think it was going to be different. I just thought like, okay, I'll just like rearrange a couple things or whatever. And then at the end, I was like, gosh darn it. Why did I not just take a picture? Because I ended up getting rid of things and organizing and it changed the space. It took 5 minutes, but it still was like such a major difference. So take a before picture.
Even like you said, it might take 5 minutes. It might take 2 hours. But the fact of taking everything out.
To see the progress. I mean, if we need like the dopamine hit, it makes such a difference. And sometimes you don't feel like you've made a lot of progress. It just kind of seems like, oh, the space is filled back or whatever. And when you look at that before picture, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of pride myself on being okay with living in the mess. It like doesn't really, I think, bother me all that much. But then when I see that, I'm like, what in the world? Like, I did not realize how different it would feel.
Each time I asked you, how does this make you feel? Every time you were like, lighter. Can I describe this as like amazing, incredible? Like, and going back to what you said, you weren't feeling like you were an organized person at home. But when we were over the other night for Waffle Wednesday... No.
I was just wondering, like, what will she be like peeking in my drawers to see if I kept my system?
I didn't peek.
Which I would have been okay with that. But I didn't do anything special, was the thing. Like, you guys were coming over and I wasn't like, I got to get this in a way that Bonnie will be proud of me. Like, it just was what it was.
But I love that because, one, I saw above the stove, the cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
You have your Lazy Susan. And I was like, oh
my God. The Lazy Susan. I have to tell you, that was one of the things that I was most skeptical of. I don't know why. It seems so many of these things seem like just common sense and
I get it, though.
But it's like you're not using, in a way you're thinking like you're not using all the space that you have. So like, why would that be more effective? But it is.
It is. It literally saves space.
Saves space. You can access your stuff. Because when it's not in a place that you can turn it, then all this stuff, it's all just piled behind each other.
We could do a whole episode on Lazy Susan.
I'm in. I'm here for it.
I forgot why we got on that.
Oh, you came over.
I came over. So I actually noticed immediately that your counters were more clear. And it was like, like seeing the clear space, it did make me have like a sigh almost of like, oh, this is nice. But for whatever reason, it just seemed so much more open. It seemed bigger. And even Ryan said, her counters look so good. That right there.
That's the real test.
That's the real test.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things that was hardest to get off the counter was my cutting boards. Because I didn't have any space that was tall enough that I could put them away. And so either they'd be like stacked on top of each other or whatever, and I just couldn't figure out how to solve that. But I took one of your like vertical ones that stacks, and it was only like 8 inches wide or something. So when I put it on its side, then I could horizontally store my cutting boards and still like have access to each one of them. So those are now in a cupboard, which the cupboards I had much more space in after I went through them. But I thought like, oh, I'll for sure never be able to do anything with them because they just don't fit in a cupboard, and figured it out. Yeah, so even having that stuff off, I just kind of dismissed it like, oh, they're just on there. They don't really bother me. I access them quite a bit, so they'll just be on the counter. But it is very different when you have that and your canisters of the tea and the sugar and the flour, and then it's just like a bunch of stuff that then ends up like in that space. And so then you're seeing all this stuff, and it's just distracting, and it doesn't feel as nice. Yeah, I've been slowly trying to get things off of the counter. So thanks for noticing.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
I am really proud of you because it's hard to like upkeep that sometimes.
Yeah, it is easier to do an intentional, almost like cleansing or reset or reorganizing and like have the systems or have things in place. Then it is easier to manage it. It's way easier when things start from a place of less.
That's a good word, though. Starting from a place of less. So Tina and I, a few episodes ago, talked about clutter blindness and how...
Tell me more.
Well, by now, in the future, you would have listened to it. But since it's technically not out yet, I'll just tell you.
2 more days.
So basically, the things that you set down or like your cutting boards, they're there. You access them, you know, or whatever frequently. The blindness becomes, that's where it lives. Yeah. You set things down and they stay there.
It's so not a conscious thing, right? It's just like blindness. You just don't even think about it because it blends in. I mean, oh my gosh. The number of things.
Right? Well,
oh,
and I feel like for you started noticing, like the cutting boards, you were like, well, now I see it and now it's kind of in the way. That's a problem.
I think one of the things that is helpful for me was like getting to the I've always believed in. I've just never actually been able to execute myself, or I told myself then I didn't care if I executed, which is not actually true. Of like everything should have a home, right? Like that's a common thing. Everybody knows everything should have a home, because if it's not, it's just going to end up anywhere. But to go through a process where you actually decide, okay, because I mean, life happens, right? So either I didn't do it up to this point for any number of reasons, or now I'm in a totally different stage of life with my kids, or we brought 50 new presents into the home, or now they brought home stuff from school. Like there's just always stuff coming into the house, always. And so to have to like do a reset for whatever reason, you get to a point where you need to like go through and decide you're either going to get rid of stuff or find a home for it. Like with the intentionality of like, okay, I can choose where this thing's home is. I saw it because I was being intentional, and I don't have to do that now every day. I don't every day have to live with this like, oh, I have to find a home for everything, because now it has a home. So then it's just like the management of like, I have a new thing that needs a home. And does it actually have a space where it fits, or is it just going to float on my, like the half walls in my room, my main room, gather a lot of stuff, right? The clutter trap.
Look at you.
I know so much cool lingo now. The clutter trap of flat surfaces. And for us, we have an open like living room, dining room, kitchen, and it's just separated by sort of like half walls that are like 4 feet high. And so we set stuff down on there. Everything from hairbrushes to things that need to go out in the car, to things that I should belong downstairs, but I don't feel like going down there, to things that I don't actually have a place for it to go. It's just going to sit here for literal months. Literal months. Because maybe also the place that it needs to go needs to get organized first before it can go there. And so I like put that off. So anyway, just all of those things happen. But when I've appreciated that, like in my kitchen, I don't really have to do that as much anymore, because I did it once. And now if there's like one new thing or two new things, that's fine. It's not like every day I had to be like, I need to find a home for everything. It was just like this intentional effort, and now I can live in it.
I love that.
You know?
I'm really proud of you, because I know that in the beginning you claimed that you were happy with the mess, and it wasn't like I was out to change you.
No.
I was like, great, we're going to be friends. Do you remember? But I do remember when you bought my guide, and I'll be honest, I don't think I said this to you.
Uh-oh.
I was like, I don't know why she bought my guide. I didn't think that you were going to use it. Honestly, because you had been so adamant about your space and like, no, you're good. You know,
I know it's bad, but it's fine.
Right. And you were okay with that. So I wasn't expecting you to take my guide and flip your kitchen upside down. But then I started getting pictures, the befores and the afters, and then you were taking videos. You were on a roll, like literally for like a week or two.
That's what happens. First of all, one space leads to another, so it happens really organically.
I taught you so well.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it does. Once you start, too, it's like Matt and I were watching a video about the science of motivation, and sometimes you wait for the motivation, or we think like, okay, I'll wait till I feel motivated basically to do things like go run or clean something up or whatever. And we're sort of waiting for that to kick in and feel like, okay, I'm in the mood to go do that. But the actual science behind it is you don't feel motivated until you, like once you start doing something, and the chemicals in your brain and the dopamine and your energy and like all the things actually lead to motivation. So we're waiting for the motivation to lead us to action, when really the action leads us to motivation. That's the real thing. So once you get started, as you always say, like just get started, it's because taking action actually like scientifically in your brain is leading you to the motivation to keep going.
I never thought about it that way, because now I'm thinking with different habits, walking or exercising, I would love to use my Peloton bike for actual like cycling, and I don't. But I've thought about it a lot, and I do think that motivation, like, oh, now's not a good time. But I think if I just go do it, it's that dopamine hit where then something changes in my brain of like, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, or it's not going to take as long.
You get the results, and so you feel better, you get the reward, and So I like you just get started, because sometimes you're like, I don't know how to tackle this. Like, it's my literal entire house. Like, my entire way of life is just a disorganized, figure it out as you go. Like, that's just our MO. And I like that. Like, it works for us. It's totally fine. Matt and I, we could use a little more balance toward the other way because both of us kind of tend toward that. But we also prefer it to be, and it's nicer to be not chaotic, not stressful, not disorganized. Like, it does get stressful. I'll come up from my office downstairs and the house will be a disaster. And if I've had like a stressful day, that is a trigger. Mm-hmm. Such a trigger. And poor Matt, dear God bless him. I love him so much. And I'm just like, why have you done nothing today? You know, and he's like, you know, keeping our kids alive and well and safe and happy. And I have done like 3 loads of laundry. Like, he's doing a lot, but the mess of it is so triggering to my stress. It like transfers onto that. You know, so anyway, it's helpful for us to not live like that, but it feels like, how would I ever tackle it all? It's like I have my actual literal everything that needs to be organized. And I like the idea of just get started, because all you need to do is do one thing and you don't have to solve it, right? So like, don't boil the ocean, just start with one thing. But what that actually does is it leads to the motivation to do the other. So like, it's a way of like, yes, just get started, because you just need to get started. But it's what you actually need to do in order to get to the motivation. So it's a dual benefit.
So what was the first space that you started with when you grabbed my guide? And I remember you wanted to read through everything first.
I did. I read the entire guide. I was like, I want to read every page because then I'll know. You know, I wanted a big picture. Mm-hmm. I think it was the pantry, I want to say. I did the pantry sort of as an independent project. I did then the baking stuff up at the top, which was a fascinating revelation into my life.
Tell me more.
There's just so many things. Like, I am definitely a person that I thought, I didn't not believe that the clear containers or organization of it was helpful and positive. But I would have sworn that I actually knew what I had more than I did. And I don't know if you remember the picture I sent you of the spices.
Oh, yes, I do.
And how many of them I had, I don't know, dozens. And over half of them were expired. And not just expired, but like expired.
Do you remember the earliest date?
I'm going to say probably there was like a 2009 one or something, 2008.
Okay, that's...
maybe. Yeah. Oh, no, don't. She's showing me pictures.
Oh, here it is. Your cabinet, or your drawer.
That's how I did it. I had them all in that drawer.
Yeah, you had a very small drawer.
But they were in like 3 different places. They were like up in the top thing. They were in that drawer, and then they were in a cabinet underneath. It's wild.
I love that you named this Erin's outrageous organizing adventure in our shared album. I love it.
It is kind of outrageous.
It is outrageous.
It's definitely an adventure.
Yeah.
But so I did each of those kind of in pockets, right? Like one
Yes.
night I would just like go do one of those things. And then the biggest part of it, which I did last, was clearing out all of the cabinets down below. Like I have the very, very deep island that can hold a lot of stuff. And then all my pots and pans, and, you know, I knew how to get to my baking stuff. I had so many random things in there though that I didn't actually use. And am I ever really gonna use that? No. We are in a very fortunate stage of life where we don't feel like we had to hold on to stuff for fear of like I might have to buy it again or whatever. Please just get rid of this thing in my house. And if I ever need one, I will just buy a new one. We can do that. Please get rid of this stuff. That's kind of the mindset we're in. So we went through a ton of stuff even yesterday. And Matt was like, I don't know, like if we ever need something like this, can we just buy it again? I was like, yes, get rid of it. It has been sitting here for 10 years.
Right. If you haven't used
it. Why? Get it out of my house.
If you haven't used it in 10 years, will you need it in 6 months?
Or 6 years.
And are you going to remember in 6 years or 6 months?
No, and I'm not going to know where it is.
Right.
I'm not going to, no. Amazon, 2 a.m., it'll be at my door tomorrow. It's fine. It's fine. And I don't want to be wasteful. Like, that's the other thing. And you talked about that in your Instagram stories a couple weeks ago. Like, the idea of moving things on is not necessarily wasteful.
Because a lot of people are like, well, I have to find a good home for this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but you know, honestly, it's either like you're trying to then take the time. I guess really it's that time is what is so precious. So it's, do you want to spend time decluttering and lightening your home and your mind, or do you want to then go spend time on Facebook Marketplace and buy nothing and everything else? But when it's like little things of like, well, someone can use this candle that's never been burned. Yeah. Just toss it. If you haven't burned it, one, why did you get it in the first place is usually my question, because then I'm saying that to myself.
Yeah. I got rid of a bunch of stuff that was from my dear mom. God, love her. I love her so much. She's so sweet. She saved all of this crap. My papers from school.
Yeah.
And my sister was sending me funny things. She was going through her stuff yesterday, and she sent me like pictures of like, oh my gosh, please look at this hilarious paper that Erin wrote, you know, and it was a ridiculous paper and it was very embarrassing. I'll share it with you offline. But then I like looked through it, and then we had a couple laughs or whatever, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? Surely my kids don't want this. Do I want to look at this again in 20 years? I don't know. Maybe I'll have like a smile. It's going to go in the garbage. So we just put it all in the garbage. 20 years of it being kept in a folder, in a box, and a whatever. And I was like, me. So if in 20 years I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. Okay, well then I'll navigate that disappointment and it'll be fine. I'll have lots of other memories to look back on.
Kids are always going to be making pictures, always going to be coloring, always going to be writing.
Here was what we did with Matt yesterday a bunch of times. He said like, oh, this picture, and it was like one of his favorite musicals that he did, and it was framed and whatever from high school. And I was like, let's just take a picture of it. Like a picture of the picture at this point is honestly better to me than the physical picture. And so I took a couple pictures of the funny things that we ran into yesterday and then tossed it. Because honestly, a digital copy is so much better for me now anyway. I'm going to access it more. I can search it. I can organize it. And it's not taking up a box.
So someone else that I know also will take like recipes and make it into a Shutterfly book. Like so smart, because I have my mom's recipes, and then I'm getting my dad's mom's recipe. So if I want to share it with the family.
And you can keep their writing. If you actually do the picture, you can keep their writing intact.
There's just so much nowadays that we can do that's very different than when we were growing up, that, our parents or grandparents kept a lot of things. Yeah. And now I feel like our generation doesn't really want a lot of things.
Right.
Part of that is navigating, like, I can just take a picture, and that is more meaningful to me on my phone.
Yeah.
So Ryan and I also had a lot of memorabilia, sentimental things. Yeah. And we would keep things up here or like, in the office, and then down in the basement, we have a big memories bin. And one night we started going through it and realized it's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
So, and I think I shared this with you, we kind of made it like a date night for a couple of nights during that week. And we grabbed a glass of wine, we put on a show, and then we'd go through a lot of the things in our memory bin, and we would laugh at it and, joke. And a lot of things, because we grew up together, Ryan and I in youth group, were doubled. And we didn't need double the things. So some of them went, and we pared it down where we we have now room in our memories bin for other things that we want to add.
Right.
And I think that is really beautiful, because as we're going through now, what do we want to add to the memories bin? Like, is this actually a memories bin item? So our neighbor across the street makes us pool passes, which I love. Aww. And every year they would get more intricate. I think the last year he did it, it had like a barcode on it, and it had like the name. So fun. It was really fun. Those are in there because that's something that I want to make space for. It is little, but it brings back the memories of when Cindy was here and us living here and moving to this neighborhood and everything else. So it is interesting when you start going through and just taking that picture sometimes, even if it is a picture of a picture.
Yeah, it gives you that freedom to be like, it's okay, I'm not going to lose it forever. You can get rid of the thing. And honestly, all of the papers and report cards and all of that, some of it, but like you just said, it's so much to go through that okay, if I'm keeping a lot from all of those things, then when am I ever sitting and going through all that anyway? So paring it down to things that are meaningful, or I looked at them like maybe once every 5 years or something, pull out your memory box if you haven't and go through it. There was like a rock in there. There was a broken piece of, yes, literally, no. Matt was like, I gave you that rock. And I was like, what? You gave me this rock from what? But half the stuff, I had no idea what it was even from. Like, it was meaningful at the time. It's not meaningful to me now. So I just got rid of all that. Because I'm like, it's definitely not going to be more meaningful to me in 20 years.
You're not going to remember in 20 years. Your memory's going to come back and be like, oh, yeah, that rock.
Was the thing from the creek that, no, like, I'm sorry. So I got rid of a lot of stuff that I didn't even know really what it was. Okay. So not only was it even like, oh, do I really need to keep these things? No, I don't need to keep my 3rd grade how do I cross the street safely report. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants it. Even those, like, in the mix of that, I just didn't even remember what a lot of the stuff was that I, saved from college or whatever.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
I know. And it's really freeing because then it's like you're focusing on what's happening now and in the future. Like, now you have kids. Yeah. Your family is growing.
We were totally fine yesterday when we were going through like all the boxes of things from our utility room, which it was just like this wild mess of like so many different types of things.
It was crazy in there. I actually thought that you bought shelves. I didn't even know that is what the shelves looked like down there because you had so much stuff on there.
Yeah, because it's like I don't want to waste time putting stuff away, and so then we just like set it down for the moment and it just becomes part of the mound. And it was stuff from even like the people that owned the house before us. They had like the old flooring and just like random stuff, you know? So
PSA, if you're moving, like, do not leave. I can't tell you the amount of times I've had that happen with clients and friends where it's like, oh, well, they left all this stuff here. Like, if you don't feel like moving it, if you don't feel like dealing with it, save 1 or 2 pieces, but like, it is your responsibility to get rid of that. It's like when I work with new teachers and the teacher before them left stuff in the classroom and it's like, oh, I think they'll need this. Like, no, like, deal with your own crap and then let us figure it out. As we've been talking, because you've shared of just how you've gone from that like chaos to calm in your kitchen specifically, I hear you almost sharing how like mentally freeing it is for you.
Well, it's like decision fatigue, why people wear a black shirt and jeans every day, because that's one less decision that has to be made. It's the same with our stuff. When something is clear or a decision is already made about it, then it's one less decision. And so it's just that much more obviously aesthetically pleasing, which does a lot to our minds and our space. But it feels good for a lot of reasons, and it takes out a lot of like the day-to-day decisions about. I was listening to your like ADHD
My live with Emily.
Yeah. Which was so fun, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
If anybody's listening to this podcast and you haven't watched that live, it was very fun. She's so great.
I love Emily.
That was my first time seeing her, and she was really fun and insightful. And I've not been diagnosed with ADHD, but a lot of her like really resonate with like, I don't know what it is, but I even just did this the other day. I won't tell you what it was, but there was something that like, basically, there was a space already designated for it. And I felt, I don't know if it was like a laziness or what, but my brain was just like setting it 3 inches off, like not in the right place, because it was like the path of least resistance instead of just like moving it into the place that it needed to be. And then it would have been done. I do that all the time. That's just the way my brain works. And it's a very hard challenge for me to take the extra step and just put something away. It has really helped me to like have better things that remove the barrier. If it has a place, then I at least have one less barrier to get it there. And otherwise, everything is just everywhere.
Do you feel like it's one less decision to make?
Yeah, it's
decided that this is where
if I get to a point where I'm like, oh, my daughter's brush and hair tangled stuff needs to go back. Where is it going to go to? That sounds so stupid. Like, why does that not have a place? It doesn't have a place. It just like ends up floating around the house wherever we've last done her hair. If there actually is a place for it, then it's less of a barrier for me to like get it in a place where it's organized. So like in the kitchen and everything, now everything just has a place and it has breathing space and it has room. And so to have to like think I'm going to put this away, I don't have to decide where is it going to go. It just has a place. So it's one less barrier for me to actually keep it organized. The decision fatigue is real.
You've been listening to the Declutter Diaries, specifically about Erin's outrageous organizing adventure. And like you heard, she mentioned using my DIY guide called the Organize Home. If you would like to purchase the guide for yourself or gift it to a friend or family member, check the link inside the show notes and it'll be right there for you to purchase. It is so easy to follow. I simplify everything. I have over 60 container recommendations literally in your pocket. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of Erin's outrageous organizing adventure. See you then.